Today's video exists because I am making a conscious effort to try and be less negative about the coverage of this MVP debate. I have been just as guilty as anyone else really making and participating in the most toxic discourse possible, and for a variety of reasons, the way the media has covered this MVP race has been annoying, but I want to talk about why this is one of the best MVP races ever, and at least for me, the best MVP race that I have ever bared witness to. So let's talk about it. March Madness is here, which means now is a perfect time to check out this video's sponsor, Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the easiest way to play daily fantasy for someone who is new to daily fantasy. I personally could not be happier with the app's easy layout and experience. It is just you versus the projections. Select 2 to 6 players and pick whether you think they will get more or less of their player's projected stat. Get them all right and you can win up to 25 times your money. My pick of the day is Nicholas Claxton. He is projected from Prize Picks to get 11.5 points. Jokic has kind of been a traffic cone lately, as we're going to talk about in this video later, and I feel like he can get more than 11 against Jokic. Obviously, there are a ton of March Madness projections as well, but I really can't pick one of those because, personally, I don't know anything about college basketball. Looks fun, though. But what's great for you is that if you have not played Prize Picks yet, all first-time users that use my code RUSTY will get a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. So let's say you put in $50, you will receive $50 from Prize Picks, and so on. So click the link in the description to download Prize Picks and use my code RUSTY to get an instant deposit match up to $100. Thank you to Prize Picks for sponsoring this video. So first things first, let's just really break down the case that all three of these players have, because of course this is a three-man race, something that has luckily been brought up more, which is perfect because I'm going to start with talking about Giannis. I've mentioned before in the past that it's bothered me how the race between Jokic and Embiid has been treated as just that, the race between Jokic and Embiid. But Giannis this whole time has very strongly had a really good case himself, and finally he's getting some credit for that. 31.5 points, 12 rebounds, 5.5 assists, 60% true shooting, the best record in the NBA of 50-20, being the first team to eclipse 50 wins. Their record since the calendar year has switched has been absurd. They went on like a 16-17 game win streak. They're on pace for 58 wins, will probably finish the year with the best record. And of course, between these three players, Giannis is easily the best defender here. No knock on Joel Embiid because he's a really good defender, but he's somewhere between like the 10th to 15th best defender, and Giannis is like maybe the best. So best defender here, Giannis, but the other two players are a little bit more offensive minded, and I would definitely say better offensive players, or at the very least in theory, and certainly their numbers would suggest that they are this year. But defense is there, the winning is there, obviously the precedent is there. Giannis has as strong of a case as any. It might be the more uninteresting option between the three, just because Jokic winning 3 in a row would be something cool. Joel Embiid finally winning one would be cool, and also get his fans to finally shut the hell up. Giannis has won 2 before, but I think it's kind of silly that we would apply that type of argument to him, given that Jokic has also won 2. So the voter fatigue thing, Giannis hasn't won in 2 years, so let's maybe not do that. But I've seen people make that argument. He's won it before, but it's mostly Embiid fans. Anyway, speak of the devil, let's talk about Joel Embiid, because I've been a lot higher on his MVP case than I was previously. He is leading the league in scoring at 33.5 points, averaging the most points a big man has averaged since the NBA-ABA merger. The only players who have eclipsed 33.5 points in the past have been guards, so he's doing that, while also doing it on 65% true shooting, which is damn near 10% better than league average. So he's also having like the most efficient 33 point per game season ever. Add 10 rebounds, 4 assists on top of that. The second best record in the NBA at 48-22. They're on pace for 56 wins, and frankly, it could be more given that since the All-Star break, the Sixers have a 77% win percentage. So record-wise, they could be arguably just as impressive, if not right there with the Milwaukee Bucks. And of course, there's going to be the scoring title that Joel Embiid probably gets unless Damian Lillard keeps being ridiculous, because he is slowly creeping up to catch up. But I think he probably gets the scoring title, does it again on absurd efficiency, and probably the second best record in the league. And notably, between these three players, the argument with Jokic is Joel Embiid is a much better defensive player, and that is kind of reflected in the team's defensive stats. The Sixers are a better defensive team than the Nuggets for sure, although the Nuggets, to be fair, have also been pretty great since the turn of the calendar year defensively, and we'll talk about Jokic's defense more in a second here. But Embiid's case has looked better and better, especially as he has tried to ramp it up. As this last stretch of games goes along, I think it really matters how all of these guys close it out in terms of who wins the award. And Joel Embiid seems pretty determined and pretty deliberate to make his counting stats even more impressive. And again, the Sixers have not been losing ball games. So combine those two factors and he could just will his way into this award. Nikola Jokic and his MVP case have not been popular lately, and that's for some fair reasons, some not. What's not helped is that lately the Nuggets' record as well as Jokic's individual counting stats have slipped somewhat. While he has had some bounce-back games, he's also had some real stinkers. Games where he's getting outplayed by players that have no business outplaying him. But just to speak to his overall season, because of course we don't want too much recency bias here, Jokic is still averaging 25 points, 12 rebounds, literally 0.1 away from 10 assists, and 70% true shooting, which is just absurd. So that's the real thing I want to talk about in terms of the scoring thing. The big knock that people have for Jokic is that his scoring numbers are down by comparison to Giannis and Embiid, who have both eclipsed over 31 points per game. Meanwhile, Jokic is at least 6.5 points per game behind the next best in that department. However, 70% true shooting kind of splits that gap to a degree. Not all the way. I think 33 on 65 true shooting is more impressive than 25 on 70, but it's a notable enough difference in efficiency, especially when compared to Giannis, that it justifies the lack of shots. Nikola Jokic doesn't shoot the ball at the volume that both of these guys do, but when he does, it really goes in. So I feel like if he ramped up the volume, as he has in previous years, he could still maintain some impressive efficiency, but get more like 26 to 28 points a game, again, as he has in the last couple of years. Me personally, though, 25-point triple-double and a 33-point double-double, I don't think it's ridiculous to think the 25-point triple-double is statistically more impressive. Same goes in the case of the 31-point double-double that Giannis averages. But, of course, defense is a factor, and this is the main knock on Jokic. And as I mentioned in the ad read, he's been bad defensively lately. Now, the Denver Nuggets have also been top 5 in defensive rating since the turn of the calendar year. So Nikola Jokic is clearly capable of anchoring a top 5 offense in the league for a decent or top 5 defense rather in the league for a long stretch of time, because he is doing it and has done it before. I think his defensive woes are significantly overblown, and there is a ton of confirmation bias. People have decided that Nikola Jokic is in general and always a complete traffic cone, so when he has plays where he does look like a traffic cone, it really sticks out. It's kind of like how James Harden was like a pretty alright defender for like 2 years following him being a pathetically bad defender, but he would still consistently be on Shaq and the Fool because he'd make a mistake sometimes. Confirmation bias. We've decided he's a terrible defender, so anytime there's a time where he looks like a terrible defender, gets posted on Twitter, gets posted on Reddit, and it's the top thing. Just the way that it is. Nikola Jokic plays defense in a way that is not traditional to the center position because he doesn't really have the body type or the athleticism to play the position traditionally. But he plays passing lanes, he knows how to position himself really well. But the last few weeks have not been a good example. I don't know if it's a lack of effort because the season's winding down, maybe he's getting fatigued as things are going along, or frankly, it almost feels as though he is tanking his own MVP case intentionally. Now, I don't think that's actually true, but it certainly feels like it at times, especially given that he's talked so much about how he really doesn't care about winning this award, where I almost feel like he's like, yeah, I don't want the legacy of being a 3-time MVP on my back because I know people are going to give me shit for that for a long time if I'm not winning. You know, if he potentially finished his career without winning a championship but was a 3-time consecutive MVP, people would look at him pretty funny. So I do almost wonder if he's taking that into consideration and be like, nah, I'm not going to try that hard with my stats. I'm going to look even worse and try even less on defense. And the Nuggets are going to slip in the record, but who cares? I'm focused on winning a championship this year. That's not happening. It'd be absurd for him to do something like that, but it does almost feel like it. And that's not exactly an ideal situation to be in, given that, as I mentioned, I think these last 15 or so games of the regular season are super important to this race, because right now, genuinely, it's hard for me to make a selection. I think they are neck and neck and neck. I think this is basically the closest I've ever seen an MVP race, period, and especially this late in the season. With 15 games to go, most MVP races are pretty much decided by then. Not universally. When they're a really tight race, it can be determined by that last couple of games, like the Russ and Harden year. Like, I feel like Russ's MVP case was solidified by that Denver game, and I think that was in the last 15 games of the season. I think it was really towards the end of the season, but like, that type of stuff can matter, but typically we know. Last year we were like, yeah, Jokic is probably winning MVP with 15 games to go. Here we are, and it could really go 3 ways, and I would completely understand it going any of those 3 ways. And honestly, between these 3, if I asked you which of these players cares the most about winning an MVP, who's going for it the most, I think we all know. Joel Embiid has made it clear that he cares about this award significantly more than Nikola Jokic or Giannis ever seemed to care before they even won it. And now, given that they both have 2 themselves, I could see Embiid like really pushing it to close this year. So ultimately, my prediction would be Joel Embiid is going to close out this year and win the award. Jokic continues to slow down, and Giannis doesn't really jump up himself. I think Joel Embiid might have it this year. It definitely has the strongest wave of support of people campaigning for it, and frankly, I kind of want that to be the result. So again, his fan base can shut up. But I'm not going to be negative. I just was. You got to give me a little bit to indulge. But overall, I want to be happy about this. And seeing these 3 big men dominate the NBA to the level that they have, coming from overseas, from all different places, I think it's truly a great way of encapsulating where the NBA is right now and how awesome the NBA is right now. The amount of talent that we have right now and how so many players are peaking at the moment, it kind of reminds me of like 2009 in the NBA, when we had a lot of players, if not at their peak, certainly having one of their best years. Obviously LeBron, Kobe, and then Dwayne Wade's best year was 2009. Chris Paul's best year was probably 2009. Dwight Howard's was certainly close to it in 2009. A crazy amount of players who were super duper all-time talents peaking at the same time. I think we're going to look back 20 years from now and be like, holy shit, Giannis, Embiid, and Jokic were all at their best at the same time in the same year. That's insane. And I think we need to sit back and appreciate the greatness that is happening in front of us. And I'm saying that to you, and I'm saying this to myself. The annoying people who are making this race annoying, don't let them drag your feelings on the whole thing down. Because I literally went into it planning on making this video a rant about the MVP race, but I decided no, I've had enough of the negativity. Let's just be happy. Because overall, I've been enjoying the hell out of it. And I would hope that if you're a real basketball fan and not just someone who is petty and determined to have one player win over the other, it's just enjoyable. Anyways, this video went on for way longer than I intended to. Sorry about that, Rudy. But yeah, that is it. Goodbye. Shout out to Rudy for editing, and yeah.